Hello, this is Coach Wilson, and this is Unit 1, Day 5. Today in your journal, I'd like for you to compare and contrast similarities and differences between the Jamestown colony and the Plymouth colony. Give at least 3 similarities and 3 differences between each of those colonies. You can also use the Massachusetts Bay colony there in place of the Plymouth to give you a few more facts or a few more for your list. You can list these in your journal, just make sure that you've got 3 similarities and 3 differences. Alright, today we're going to start talking about the Columbian Exchange. And the next 2 days of notes are going to be kind of a overview of what's going on between 1492 up to about 1750. And the Columbian Exchange is pretty simple to understand. It was a series of complex interactions between peoples and environments. So interactions between the Old World, which is Europe, and the New World, which is America, and how Christopher Columbus' sailing to the New World developed a new relationship of trade. What items were traded, what advantages, disadvantages were there. Some items that were positive, just to name a few: corn, potatoes, livestock, and horses. And we also had some negative effects such as disease, and we've talked a lot about that with our early American society. Okay, now make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yep, here we go. On the Columbian Exchange map, these are some things that went from America to Europe, Asia, and Africa, and things that went to the Americas from Europe, Asia, and Africa. And if you look, guys, it's kind of interesting to note that potatoes, tomatoes, beans, tobacco, peppers, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, turkey, things like that all went from the New World to the Old World. The same as things such as horses, cattle, sheep, and pigs all went from the Old World to the New. And that's interesting because when we think about things such as bananas or horses or things that we think of being kind of native to North America, those things actually originated from the Old World. Bananas specifically, we think of the Banana Republic down in the Gulf of Mexico and all the Middle Eastern, or Central American countries that grew sugar cane, bananas, and citrus fruits. We also think of honeybees as something that is pretty American standard, that you see those everywhere. Now, the big thing that you're seeing on this map that we don't talk about or haven't spoke of yet is the disease issue. And if you look, guys, there's a long list of diseases that came over with European settlers, and they're going to affect the native population greatly. Now, corn from the Americas was nutritious, became the basis of many diets. Potatoes, which was also from the Americas, is also going to become another staple throughout the world. And then diseases are going to come from Europe and kill millions of Native Americans. And so these are just some of the big things that you want to remember about the Columbian Exchange. Now, I'm going to give you a second to look at this chart. You do not need to copy down the entire chart. You just need to understand just some of the good things and the bad things. The big ones we've already talked about with disease. And then the final negative that we'll talk about that was received in America is the loss of land. And we don't typically think of that as being something that was part of the Columbian Exchange, but these people coming over from the Old World to the New World gained lots of land as a result of the travels of Christopher Columbus. Now, the Commercial Revolution was a very important development in not only European society, but also going forward for the development of the Americas. And what it was is colonial empires were getting very profitable during this time, and they were beginning to make lots of money. And that's one of the reasons that explorers had tried to find a west passage, or a middle passage that would lead them all the way to Asia. And they made tons of money off of these raw materials that they could grow, and they're going to use the North American continent and the South American continent and the West Indies. They're going to use those areas to grow lots of raw materials and bring them back to the Old World, where they'll develop a manufactured good and then send it back to the New World to be sold, or to various parts of Europe and Africa and Asia. Now, capitalism is also going to start during this time, and just to give you a brief definition, we'll talk about capitalism throughout this American history class and on into American 2. Capitalism is the private ownership of property and means of production. And essentially it means that you can own the business, and you own how you make the product, how much it's sold for. There's no government influence there at all. And the goal of capitalism is to try to acquire as much as you possibly can and produce all of your items as at low a price as you can so that you can sell them at a very high price. And after, you make a profit, you reinvest that back into the company, and over time it continues to build and build and build, and you make more money and more money. So the other name that is given to this map and is kind of the basis of what we're going to study is called the triangular trade. And the triangular trade was basically just a group of, you could call them colonial empires, but you could call them countries, whatever you want to say. But it's a group of countries or a group of governments that are trading and manufacturing goods constantly and then selling them back and forth to each other. So, for example, if we look in North America, we have whale oil, furs, and iron and lumber and ginger headed to Europe, while we also have manufactured goods coming right back. The same as those same goods that are being sent there, you're also seeing manufactured goods sent from Spain. You're seeing slaves sent from Africa. There's all sorts of things being traded on these triangles. More specifically, the triangle you really need to note is the one between North America, Europe, and Africa. And that is going to be the big triangle. And we'll talk more about that. Now, many groups of people try to form what we call a joint stock company, and we talked a little bit about that with the Jamestown settlement and the Virginia Company. They were formed to invest in the New World, and many people would invest at one time in order to reduce the risk. Investors got a share of this profit, and then the trading would increase. So, for example, if I split the company 3 ways, and we make our voyage, and then it's only me, but my 2 investors are back at home, as I make money with this company, that money stays in the company, and profits from that go to those investors. So they continue to make money off of it even though they may not be on the voyage. However, for me, instead of me making all the money, I do lose some profit, sure, but I reduce the risk if I fail that I'm not going to lose everything. And that's kind of what we talked about in day 3. Now, mercantilism is also a very important subject for you to note, and this may be one of the most important slides we're going to talk about today. Mercantilism means that a country's power is in its wealth, and that essentially means the more money and land and gold and things they can acquire, the more power they have. And a country acquired wealth in 2 ways. One was to obtain more land and gold. The other was to obtain a favorable balance in trade. And you always wanted to export more than you imported. If you're exporting things, it means that you have goods, you're manufacturing goods, and you're sending those things on their way. If you're importing those goods, it means that you're relying on another country or relying on someone else to keep your country functioning. Now, the mother country, as part of mercantilism, is England. All right, they are the ones that are getting all of these raw materials, and they are getting them from the New World. That's where all their wealth comes from. So the New World, the 13 colonies specifically with England, had to import all of their materials. Okay, or all of their manufactured goods, I should say. Excuse me. They had to import all of those manufactured goods. England is exporting all of those manufactured goods to the New World, while they're also bringing in all of the raw materials. Now, importing raw materials is not a bad thing because you're importing those a lot cheaper. You make stuff out of it, and then you send them back and sell them for a lot more. It goes back to what we talked about with capitalism. Bringing in things at a low price, manufacturing them, and trying to sell them at a higher price. Produce at low, sell at a high. All right, and here's the chart for mercantilism, and I would like for you to try to, even if you don't put this down in your notes the same way, just to understand this, and this is something that you'll need to remember for your test. Raw materials are found in the colonies. Those materials are sent to the mother country, and then those are sent to be made into manufactured goods in the mother country and then sent back to the colonies and sold to them. And if you think about it, guys, eventually what's going to happen is, and you'll notice that picture of the colonists tar and feathering someone, the colonies are eventually going to realize they're getting cheated. That England's taking all of their raw materials and then charging them more to make it, and they could just make it in the colonies. So, just to remind you how mercantilism works, we're going to hit this with a few more charts. Exports are greater than imports. That's what you want. You want to do that in order to achieve a favorable balance in trade. Imports are goods brought in from other countries. Exports are goods sold to other countries. Make sure you understand the difference between importing and exporting. Now, a European view, they saw it as the mother country should have a very large treasury, having fewer imports than they do exports, balancing their trade, and then Gold, silver, fur, lumber, those things are coming into the mother country while they send the manufactured goods out. So here are your 3 questions for the day. Not a very long lecture, but just make sure you get all these 3 questions copied down. Here are your 3 vocabulary words. And guys, if you have any questions, please make sure that you message me, email me, let me know, and I will be glad to help any of you any way that I can. Otherwise, hope you have a good day and talk to you soon.